So, Nigel, the floor is yours, and of course, I call on Lord John Prescott, who is a passionate man for shipping. He's there. I know your project was not approved, but you're a passionate man for shipping. Lord John Prescott, first experience was in maritime transportation, so then he became, I don't know why, probably related to the fact that I was in maritime transportation, Vice Prime Minister in the UK, so Deputy Prime Minister. Ellen Jensen, Panayotis Zakariadakis, Vicente Del Rio, Elena Servazio, and Alexio Pico, who is the consortium leader dealing with our, please have a seat. Vicente, whatever you want to sit. You pick your choice, I mean. Yeah, okay, whatever. Close to the way out. Okay, please step in. Just a final word of advice. We have been very cool about this, very relaxed, it's very good. I mean, we have heard staggering numbers, really, and we hope that the report that we are preparing, that we have prepared, that Brian has prepared, will be, again, of service, will be a tool used by the Commission to identify key objectives, and that we can be of service, that will listen to the industry, that will listen to the stakeholders. That's the purpose of it, and we hope that it reflects that. So thank you very much. Now the floor is yours. Steer us, please. Elena Servazio is the first one on the next page.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for the introduction, Jose. I'm not sure that being a shipping journalist is quite as exciting and romantic and above all remunerative as you perhaps think it might be. But it's certainly my pleasure to be here with you today, and thank you very much to DG Move for inviting me to participate. We've heard a lot about the subject from participants in one respect and another, and I think that overall you've had a very, very good introduction to some of the key points and hot topics surrounding motorways of the seas. For centuries, the only method of moving people and goods overseas was shipping, and still today, as you know, because many of you are stakeholders in the shipping sector, still 90% of world trade is carried by sea because simply there is no alternative at all. And that also goes for 75% of the EU's external trade. So it's kind of extraordinary, I think, that in many respects you could call shipping Europe's best kept secret. How is that possible? A majority of the general public know next to nothing about shipping. Most European businesses, whether they are beneficiaries of shipping services or not, actually have very little contact directly with shipping, and consequently very little understanding of it. We're all beneficiaries of shipping services, whether we know it or not. And Lloyd's List, the media organization that I work for, has been providing information about the maritime industry since 1734. And that's a very long time indeed. It's really the oldest, most traditional, big transport industry there is on Earth. So it's a very old, tried and tested method of transport between coastal nations. And I think the Motorways of the Seas can be called a visionary project because it's focused on this oldest of transport industries, and it's, I think, correctly identified it as the most modern. It's identified it as the modern solution. And it's done so because, and it is the modern solution because of its unrivaled economies of scale and its unrivaled potential to meet the environmental needs of our time. I think it's probably enough from me for the time being. We have an extremely distinguished panel who I'm very glad is joining me for this, what I hope will be a brief, sparky and above all efficient debate. So perhaps I can introduce you to all the panelists. I'm sure you're familiar with them anyway. Lord John Prescott of the House of Lords. He began his parliamentary work in 1917 and he's held several government positions, including head of the Department for Environment, Transport and the Regions. And prior to his political career, as I'm sure you know, Lord Prescott worked for the UK Merchant Navy and has since maintained a keen interest in shipping, so he knows what he's talking about. Helen Jansen is responsible, hi Helen, is responsible, I'm sorry, I'm turning my back on you all. Helen Jansen is responsible for strategy and communications in the Zero Vision Tool platform, which aims at a vision of a maritime industry with no negative impact on air and water. Panagiotis Zachariadakis is the Managing Director of Ocean Finance Greece. He's involved in several Motorways of the Seas projects, and he coordinates the Europa Ship Plan, which is the sort of southern equivalent of the Zero Vision Tool in the north, aimed at the sustainable financing of short sea shipping. Vicente Del Rio is the CEO of Fundación Valencia Port since 2012, where he is responsible for budget planning, business development and institutional support in the various lines of port operations. Elena Savasio at the end, hi, is Advisory Project Principal for Lloyd's Register Quality Assurance, based in Milano, Italy. Alexio Pico, who briefly my iPad changed to Alexia Piccolo, but I fixed that. Alexio is a director at Circle, leading the consultant team to support the MOS detailed implementation plan. And he has 15 years experience in leading transport ICT projects. Antonio, has Antonio left us? Antonio is still with us, but is not going to be part of the panel. So those are the panelists. We thought that we would start off and devote a little bit of time to answering some of the key questions that came up from members of the European Parliament after the first presentation of the plan. And to summarize a few of those questions, a number of MEPs focused on the question of the safety and reliability of short sea shipping and motorways of the sea to do the job that we're all hopeful that it can do. So I thought I'd start with Lord Prescott, who's actually served on ships, and ask him, where do you think that the short sea shipping industry stands in terms of safety, reliability compared to other modes of transport, and how far has it come since you actually were working in the Merchant Navy?
Hello. Sorry. I was 10 years a seaman serving on Canard Lines. Was a steward, not what they usually call a seaman, but nevertheless one has been actively involved in the shipping industry. I'm very pleased with the Motor of the Sea programme. I think it emphasises the importance of shipping, not only in its contribution to moving goods, as we've heard today, but also the contribution role it can make in regard to the environment. And there's a lot to talk about environment here, particularly about the fuels, the energies and efficiency. But I want to point out to you that whilst COP20 from the Kyoto Climate Change Agreement, which I was involved in negotiating in 1997, didn't specifically identify shipping, nor aircraft in that sense, but what we need to do is to recognise that COP21 has now given a target to governments. They have got to find policies that reduce the levels, produces the level reduction in carbon. That's what they've got to actually do. That will have a major effect on investment in the future. Already you're seeing it here with the Motorways of the Sea helping to finance engines or changes which have been referred to here. But the changes will come in the ports and they'll come in estuaries. We, in our side, are complaining because we haven't got our corridor, a northern one, running from Liverpool, Josie. I've come all this way for you to tell me you've lost your contract. Well, I hope we'll argue with you that shipping and corridors and ports and estuary are a crucial part of future investment. And what we're doing now, we're going ahead, Josie, we have produced a report for the low carbon for the estuary, called the Economics of Low Carbon Cities. So it's beyond just shipping, it's a whole region for carbon development. And that's what we're now trying to produce for the corridor, a northern one, a very important one, because in Dover, one of my Dover colleagues is here, but you know, we're so congested there, 87% is now going through Britain, is going down through Dover. That's not enough. Could I just say the big question, since is in and out. Well, I belong to the in, and if shipping needing global decisions and global investment, that's why Britain needs to in the middle of it. I must dash back after this conference and go and vote for that principle that Britain should remain part of Europe.
Thanks very much for that comment. And a number of MEPs were interested in having more detail on the safety and reliability, including Wim van der Kamp of the Netherlands, Claudia Monteiro de Aguirre of Portugal. Eleanor, I wondered if you would like to add a comment, because you're very experienced in quality assessment, in the regulatory side as well. What's your perspective on the degree of regulation and quality and responsibility out there in the shipping industry compared with other modes of transport?
Well, I think that the level is good. Can you hear me? Yeah. The level is good. What is important, I'm an expert on sustainability. We always have to remember that sustainability has the three main pillars: the economic, the social, and the environmental aspects. And the safety of the motorways of the sea is not only, we don't have just to, we are in a round table looking for the future. Okay, so we have done a lot. We focused on the safety of people on the ships. We still need to focus on common KPIs related to safety, not only on the ships, but also on all the impacts related to safety of people and also of goods around in the chain. So that is what we have to look at when we were talking about safety in the motorways, not what we have done still today, because it's something that we have consolidated. We need to look what we have to do tomorrow to grant the safety of people, to grant the safety of goods, of financial aspects, for example. So this is what I want to bring to this round table, not to just focus on a little impact that we have in this project. We have to think in a sustainable way and have a more global vision of what is the most and what are the potential of this project to bring a new model of sustainable future for future generation. That is what we have to focus on. So that is my reply, not just to understand what is compliance to local regulation or to European regulation. It is not our target. If we still focus to be compliant to what is required by the regulation, we will never look at a sustainable world, because we will always focus to today and not to tomorrow, to what we want to be and not to what we are. So that is my reply, sorry.
That's a very good reply, thank you very much. Yes, I mean, you mentioned the entire logistics chain and to have a global view of it. And sitting next to you, Alexio, you know, you have a great deal of experience of these things. And reading the detailed implementation plan, I must say that I had my own, I was interested in actually knowing a little bit more about how the integration, how the systems, we heard earlier from the Maritime Affairs Director of the Netherlands, how complex some of the maritime systems are, how difficult it can be to streamline some of these elements of the logistic chain. So Alexia, what's your perspective on what the main challenges are to achieve the necessary degree of integration that is going to make the Motorways of the Seas project a success?
Thanks, Nigel. And I think that the answer is based on my 15 years experience in ICT and transport projects, is on 3 levels. There are 3 dimensions to take into account. First one, of course, in order to have an effective maritime transport integration into the door-to-door logistic chain, the first one is infrastructure, for sure. The accessibility of ports, both from the maritime side and from the road and weight side, is still to be solved. It's not still fully there. Specifically, in terms of rail, for instance, there are really a number of bottlenecks that should be tackled in order to achieve this maritime transport integration in the logistic chain from the infrastructure side. And then we have more the side that is based on two sides. One is processes, simplifying and streamlining processes. This is not only from the purely business-to-business logistic side, but also from the business-to-administration. Think about custom processes. A lot of improvements have been done, but still there is a way to go in improving custom processes all over Europe. And obviously, when we talk about processes, we talk about ICT, integrating ICT systems of the different actors on the logistic chain. And in this respect, I think both on processes and on ICT, Motorway of the Sea has already contributed a lot in this respect. I give you just 2 examples. In one Motorway of the Sea project, a big shipper has been provided with a platform that we can call it corridor information platform, corridor information pipeline, that is exactly in line also with the digital agenda for transport policy. They can use this platform in order to have a unique access to all the cargo that are shipped for them, without having, as in the past, a number of telephone calls, fax, emails, Excel file, and integrated in their systems in order to have a real just-in-time production. That's what they need. That's what most of the shipper needs in order to be effective. And in another Motorway of the Sea project, both solution has been evaluated from the return investment side. It has been demonstrated that the return investment of all these cargo clearance solutions and procedures is less than 2 years, that the net value is quite high, and specifically in terms of figure, for €1 invested by Europe, there are €27 in net present benefit for the actors of the logistic chain. And I think this is a quite a good example of how Motorway of the Sea could contribute to an effective maritime transport integration in the logistic chain.
Another MEP question that was asked the other day was when there are going to be really detailed statistics on the effectiveness of the Motorways of the Seas in order to better gauge the results.
Okay, I can answer in my capacity of leading the consortium. First of all, it's quite important to mention that data and data gathering is a key part of the detailed implementation plan. So we started 3 months ago, and we have in our consortium the Institute for Shipping and Logistics from Bremen. They are quite well known and specialized in data gathering. And what we did already, that is already here, this is already here in the detailed implementation plan 2016, it is a number of data demonstrating the overview of the shipping operation in Europe, but more than that, also an examples of how we are going to profile all the ports in Europe. Meaning that for all of them, specifically core and comprehensive ports, talking about trans-European network, we are going to provide a number of data and technical parameters that are related to trade traffic, sea connection, interland traffic. This is very important in terms of future understanding and future possibility for Mr. Brian Simpson also to select development priority based on reliable and quality data. This is an ongoing process. The next step will end of 2016. So we can be more, let's say, broad in terms of number of data that will be provided, more than what is already there, that can be useful to be seen as an example. And last point I would like to mention that already in the DIP, the 9 core network corridors are shown with real market data showing the existing connections between all the ports in the different sections of the core network corridors. This is already a picture of the state of the art of what Motorways of the Sea is, and obviously it's the starting point for what Motorways of the Sea could be.
Thank you. In looking at the whole logistic chain, of course, ports are extremely important, and a couple of MEPs, for example, Jacina Meissner of Germany, Michael Kramer of Germany, were interested to know more about what ports need to play their role fully in the system. But they also picked up on things like the lack of port reception facilities around Europe for oily water separation or garbage. Things that perhaps a lot of people imagined that were taken care of, issues that were taken care of long ago. And someone made the comment that actually very few ports around Europe have adequate reception facilities. So, number one, is that true? And secondly, a wider question, from the port perspective, what now needs to be done quickly so that terminals can play their part in this as well?
Working now. Okay, thank you very much for the question. From our perspective, we are an institution that is inserted in the Spanish port system. We are working in concrete from the Port of Valencia ecosystem of organizations and companies. So before entering in detail in the answer, I want to say that we have been lucky. In these past 6 years, we have collaborated in several Motorways of the Sea initiatives, and our contribution has been in the 3 pillars, and different initiatives, different projects. But for the ports, most importantly than our contribution as a concrete organization is the fact that Motorways of the Sea has offered us a way to work together with all the ecosystem of companies and different interests that cohabit in a port system. And this is important because normally the challenges, and some of them were mentioned by you, but normally the challenges that we live in the ports are not challenges for the port authority, are not challenges for a concrete actor, are challenges that have to be solved in a communitary mood and way. And many times these Motorways of the Sea initiatives have allowed us to form these groups that work together and that share the challenge and the definition of the solution, that are able to prototype, to pilot things, to come to solutions. And in our experience, we have been able to involve several companies focused on concrete objectives, and we have created the positive habit of developing the problems and looking for solutions and sharing the information and measuring the effects of what was designed and defined. And many times to put people together to think is not easy, because we are not easy thinking together. And for us, Motorways of the Sea, apart from other things, has the beauty that allows many people in the port ecosystem to sit together and to think about solutions and to share the problems and define the prototypes and see real definitions for these solutions. We have plenty of examples. We have participated with Alessio and with other companies and we have measured and we have come out with these projects with around 5 million of co-founded 5 million euros of co-found that produced for each euro 27 euros of net benefit in the next 10 years. We have been disciplined to measure from a quantifiable perspective what were the results. And at the end, what we think the beauty of all these motorways of the sea is that we have created a positive habit between the different actors in the port ecosystem to focus and to solve concrete challenges and to measure the results of that solutions. And if we cannot afford to lose that positive habit. So for us is critical the continuity of the program to the future. Because more important than the number of euros that we will earn by the concrete initiatives is that we have created a group and a way of working together that can solve a lot of problems. So from our perspective, this is the important message for the future, that we need a bigger and stronger Motorways of the Sea initiative, because everything that has been created in terms of people working together and people thinking together is the most valuable thing that we have achieved for the future.
Thank you. Of course, there has been an impression among some people in the past that when European programs tried to take into account the maritime sector, that it did so up until the point of the sea itself and stopped. And there's been a lot of concentration on ports, but until now perhaps not quite so much on the ships themselves, because it's been taken for granted that ships, well, it's not like rail that needs government investment. There's a shipping industry out there, and it will sort of do whatever it has to do. And to that extent, I think it's been taken for granted sometimes. There have been outstanding examples of pioneer shipping companies that have seen the potential of this program, like Stena, like Grimaldi, that we've heard from. But in fact, I think sometimes that's been a rarity, and that as pioneers, you haven't always been followed in interest by the greater part of the shipping community. But I think that's changing. And we have two representatives on the panel who are really from that side of things. Helen, who is representing Zero Vision Tool in the north, who is working with 130 different companies on 20 different projects. And Panagiotis, who is working with the Europa Ship Plan in the south, which I think has already got something like 40 very, very solid expressions of interest from companies for participating in this scheme once it is successful in securing finance to go ahead with the renewal of the fleet. So perhaps we could hear from you about, what are the problems that you see in actually turning this increase in interest from the shipping industry itself to actually achieve the priorities and potential of the Motorway of the Seas project. And I see Panos has got the mic, but like a true Greek gentleman, he's sort of tempted to hand it to the ladies first. No? Oh, he's going to go ahead.
Okay.
So we're hearing from the south first. Well, and I should say that it's also impressed me that also for the first time, to my knowledge, there is a real effort to integrate the north and the south as well, that the two sides have come together in their grand projects to try to coordinate to an extent which I'm not aware of as having been done before, which I think is a great sign.
Thank you, Nigel, for the question. I think that we all agree that shipping now, especially social shipping, is facing huge challenges. And I would like to name them challenges and not threats, because we have to be optimistic about the future and come with something very good out of it and create win-to-win challenges, not only for shipping, but also for the shipbuilding industry and also in general for the European citizens. The challenges are well known, the 2020 sulfur capping dependency, some new regulations that we expect about the NOx, the CO2, the particles, the ballast water treatment, the MRV. So shipping needs a lot of replacements. And the same applies also for ports, but if I give you an example about the Greek situation, we will be more than happy with 50 million for the port of Piraeus in order to deploy LNG as fuel and have it there for the vessels, but we will need more than 10 times this amount of money so that we have the first critical mass of vessels that they will use LNG or they will be compatible with these new regulations. And I'm really happy that as Stefano Aki announced, this new EIB financing tool will be available very soon, so that all these owners can see whether they can be eligible and get financing from these new tools. But I have to stress out that it's not one size that fits all. And since we have huge difference, the shipowners from the south, from the south, from the shipowners from the north. For instance, we have more than 1,300 vessels with an average age of 25 years. And we are talking mainly for renewal, not for re-engine or for retrofits. And it is totally different thing to finance somebody for a new vessel or to finance somebody if he cannot present other securities, or if the vessels that he now possesses are not highly valued so that can be seen as securities or another sorts of collaterals. But let's see what this EIB financing tool will be, and I think that it can overcome the difficulty of the commercial banks to finance social shipping. And as we are discussing with several of them, we have seen that the majority of them, they have a threshold, let's say 30,000 tons of weight. Below that threshold, they are not keen to finance the vessels because for those kind of vessels, the performance is not known. There are no dedicated key performance indicators like for Supramax or for Aframax or VLCCs. If you go to Clarksons, you cannot find this kind of information. What is the second-hand price? What is the performance of those vessels? So no bank is willing to undertake the risk. But I think that with this coverage by EIB and the Juncker Bank, this can be solved. And also, one thing I would like also to mention is that we think that through the financial blending, we cannot distort the competition. We're not talking about grants, we're talking about loans, guarantees, and possibly for some cases we could use some assistance through grants, through the cohesion or the general core or the regional funds. And I think that this is the way forward for the majority of the supporters.
Thank you. Hello? An old hand.
Thank you so much. Yes. Yes, as you mentioned, Nigel, it's 130 different organizations collaborating in 20 different projects in the north, and it's over 9 different countries that are collaborating. And the most important part is the ship owners, it's the ports, it's the contractors, and most importantly also customers that are involved. We started in late 2011, and every quarter each of the projects supply information on their progress regarding regulation, on the vessel themselves, on the infrastructure and financing issues. If there are more research and development questions, they are also supporting that. So they are doing a tremendous work, and I'm impressed every day. So I'm no one, really, the industry is. These information reports are then supplied to regulators and also as input to different organizations within the EU. The important part here is that these reports have so far, from the beginning, been infrastructure issues, the hen and the egg, and that was in 2012. And very luckily we had Motorways of the Sea to go and ask for grants to start up pilots in our area. And it was pilots in LNG, it was in methanol, as you heard before, and also scrubber technology. They parts of the infrastructure problems and doing that together, which is very impressive, I think. Later on, the information was that the struggle were regulations because when they started and actually implementing these things, regulation wasn't really in place. New things needed to be discussed, as we've been hearing here before as well. And now, the next issue will be the financial mechanism, as we heard. And the one that is proposed from the north is actually to look into the extra cost. So it's not that you want to implement and build new ships, because you can still. It's actually building green ships or actually investing in green ports. And the extra cost there, it's much higher. So what is proposed is to have a temporary solution where the green investment will be the new normal. However, while doing that, we still need to have the grants for the pilots to continue to develop. And we need to have other solutions. So I'm very happy to hear the EIB with the new products. But then again, there need to be different types of solutions, because nothing can be like one only solution. It depends on what trade you have. It depends on what types of ships you have. It depends on which port location you have. So it's to offer different solutions. So again, it's the financial mechanisms that are the next step to actually try to implement this green and safe transport mode. And by that also strengthen the competitiveness of Europe, strengthen all the job opportunities that this implies. We heard several good numbers before, so I don't have to repeat that. So yes, it's the industry that needs to do it, and they are willing to do it. It's important to remember. So the support that can be given in grants or in different types of financial instruments is the next step. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a very good point, because we talk about shipping's ability to satisfy a need of society and a need for sustainable transport intra-Europe. But sometimes we forget that it's actually a big industry in itself, the maritime industry in itself, and that's sometimes overlooked and forgotten. And when I said I thought it was a visionary project, one of the reasons for that is I think it's actually a project that will be the fulcrum for capitalizing on a real European center of expertise, because Europe has always been a leader in maritime. It's got the traditional know-how, but it's also a leader, thanks partly to the MOS program, in new technology and new environmental solutions. I think it leads the world in R&D in these areas, and it can be an export industry for Europe in its own right. So I think that's part of the picture too. I think probably we're sort of starting to get to the end, because we're already over time, but one thing that I would be very interested in hearing your comment about, perhaps Jose first, was that Manuel Grimaldi said that, because we're discussing the very important matter of money, Mr. Grimaldi said that the amounts required to make this into a reality, although they may sound quite high, are actually a drop in the bucket compared with the kind of infrastructure which is needed in other modes of transport. And personally, I think that's correct. Do you share that view? And is the maritime motorway of the sea a value proposition, a good value use of funds economically?
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much.
They work for me.
Obviously, yeah, but you are a master of all trades, so you can domesticate them. No, thank you very much for that. Let me just abuse of having the microphone and just say two things. First of all, be truthful and transparent to our people. Is that the wardrobe closes at 2 p.m. Okay, so first thing. So it's at your risk and peril. Now, the second thing is about people and supporting the, let's say, the humanware part of it. I don't like very much the word, but the human tissue. Those that are backing us up, those that are making this project happen, and those that, of course, not me, are responsible for the failures, especially that. So that is INEA mainly. So it's the team, Morten Jensen, Jakob, Jarek Kotowski, and of course Sofia Papantoniada, that after destroying all the proposals, this is moving now to innovation, where she will still destroy more proposals, so she likes it. It's a bit inspired by the Trojan War, she destroys everything. So, and welcome to Alberto and Antonio. Well, he's a newcomer, so he's not responsible, he's virginal, so it's okay, but Antonio is also part of the crime. I will not mention your name because you are a big sinner. So, but those are the guys you have to try and keep up with, because they will be your connection to a more efficient bureaucracy. Okay, that's very important. How to get access to funds. So these are important people. Now, coming back to what you were saying, I would just like to say this. I've never heard in my life such an inspiring holistic vision, like, for instance, the one of Emmanuel coming out and showing what it is. Sorry, Emmanuel, I was trying not to speak very loud about you, but okay, it's such an inspiring vision of a head of an enterprise coming here and being allowed to reveal, the way he views transportation in the world. How many people in railways undertakings can say that? Usually they speak about the price of the tickets. That's all. So I think that this shows a little bit the tissue, as well as Stena, that came forward. It's a deputy CEO and is coming forward showing a vision in terms of investment, in terms of changing sustainability. So, and of course, Greece, everybody says Greece is not there, but they came to the point. How best to connect, it's an archipelago state, how best to connect all the islands, if not with shorter shipping, and being able to move into sustainable shipping, so chapeau. So it's really my appreciation for what you have done. So again, as I said, I just hope to be of service, and having helped together with Brian, and I hope now in the future with Wojtek, being able to support you, to support this drive of the industry. No other industry has the vision. No other industry has the flexibility that we need to guarantee that transportation will carry on, to be able to talk to people from 50 different countries in a port. Ship chandlers, freight forwarders, shipping companies, ship owners, they have a flexibility that we need. They have the flexibility to accommodate new solutions, to go for new ones. And don't forget that Europe, as Nigel said, is the largest trading bloc in the world. We have to renew the luster of European shipping, to renew our cultural ties that are related to shipping. That's what we should do, so that Europe has a brilliant future. Don't forget that security of supply is the world. It's not by accident. Marco Polo's thing, stopped because there was no security of supply, or there was a better security of supply. So we need to keep the Atlantic as the main source. Why? Because keeping the Atlantic open, connecting 3 continents, you will keep all the other routes open. I would hate to have to vote all the times for Azerbaijan winning the European Song Contest so that they will allow containers to pass through Azerbaijan. So I like Baku very much, but I like Europe better. So if you want to keep the routes open, backup shipping, okay? And it's a peanut, the investment that we are doing compared to what it is being done in railways. And now that I'm retired, I can say, well, railways was born with subsidies and probably will die with subsidies.
Thanks, Jose. I'd like to, very briefly, as a final contribution to this session, I'd like to ask Lord Prescott for a brief final comment, because after all, we hope it won't, but if things go badly tomorrow, this may be the last time either of us are invited to the European stage.
Hello, yeah. Yes, just to make a quick point, Mr. Grimaldi made some very powerful points, and it struck me that what he was saying is the traditional ways that we want shipping to make a contribution to low carbon is the traditional ways. Get better engines, more efficient, different fuel. And he was saying, really, when you look at our emissions and the cost we're paying for it, could it be done a different way? And he was suggesting that argument, and I think that's what's being suggested here. For example, I tried to argue about a northern corridor missing, that going from Liverpool right over to Hull up to the Baltic, and that's what trade is changing. But if you look what you save on lorries he was talking about, what lorries were costing us, there's a report in Britain come out today saying 50% of the lorries on the road are empty, causing a massive amount of carbon. So we need to start looking at the total picture, and I think what would change that way, and governments now have accepted a target, as I said, on cutting carbon. Now when they have to reach that target and actually achieve that, it's going to have different ways of integrating transport in different ways, and what shipping's only one part, the ports are the other, and this report we've done is how you look at the regions. So if you look at the total picture and begin to judge the actual priorities, it may well be on how much you could reduce low carbon and what is necessarily the cheapest or the most costly way to do it. And what he's suggesting, and I think you did as well, about the research, we need to start thinking in a more wholesome way of how we achieve the overall target instead of just putting a very heavy burden in a small part of the sector. I think that's the question being posed for us now. So we need the research to do that. I hope that will happen. But I think if it's possible, as you asked for, Joseph, for that information he was given somehow to be circulated, could start a proper debate of how we deal with the low carbon problem, to which governments have actually committed themselves, and the market way might not necessarily the best way, but working with the industry, we solve the problem without putting the heaviest burden on those where it is most costly to achieve it, when you could do it a different way. Use the Northern Corridor, we're very useful right up to the Baltic, and we can show you get a more efficient way to move things. But I think this whole business of committed to low carbon is going to change a lot of the priorities. And that one contribution by Mr. McGraw, anyway, went on, but it is powerful in all sectors. So I hope we'll see there is change in a fundamental way, which will change the whole priority of investments, the whole role of the integration of our transport system. Because after all, don't forget, when I might be talking about my government, it's a European target that's committed to actually reduce it, and that's why we need to see what transport can do, and needs a greater environmental dimension on this decision of the motorways. Put the green on, Josie, and I will make a better contribution.
Thanks. So many items to discuss, so much work to do. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much to our panelists.
Thank you very much for staying alive for 2 hours. That was